What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Special guest today. Today we have Sawyer Souls, or what's your new handle? I am Dylan Sawyer.
Yeah, did a little rebrand, just going with the name now, cutting out the soles since I stopped selling shoes. So I am Dylan Sawyer on pretty much all platforms.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So I'm pumped to have you on the channel today. Specifically to dig into a couple things. First and foremost, kind of what your OA business looked like at scale, right? That's sort of a lot of what the viewers are going to relate to in terms of really how to blow the OA part of the business up. And then ultimately, and more recently for you, is starting that transition into the wholesale space, right? So that's kind of like the format of how we're going to approach this conversation. But just to kind of dig in and get things started, can you give the viewers some perspective into what that old OA business looked like, how you operated it, what the scale looked like, and we'll kind of go from there?
Yeah, for sure. So I still do a decent amount of OA at a pretty good scale, especially coming into Q4. I just know a lot of products. I have my sourcing sheet from last year. I just look through that, buy a bunch of the same stuff as last year. So it's pretty easy. But at a large scale, I'm kind of a unicorn. I feel like most people have a VA at this scale helping them source. I was doing all the product research myself, and I still do. And I do have some help on the purchasing end. And that really, really helps me out because there's a lot of stuff that I buy where I might only be able to do 10 units per order, 20 units per order. I can't order 1,000 units at the same time. So doing a bunch of small orders and buying gift cards, it takes a lot of time. So having someone on the purchasing end helps me a lot. And I also have an admin virtual assistant, and he helps me with a ton of just like data entry, like from the order confirmation, he'll put it into my purchasing spreadsheet, then he'll communicate that with the prep center. So I don't really have to deal with any of that stuff. And at a large scale, you're going to just need to find as many competitive advantages as possible. So that's going to be using a ton of gift cards, specifically through Top Cashback. Like I would say majority of my OA purchases are with gift cards, and doing a lot of research, finding coupon codes, finding products that I can replenish, looking through my old sourcing spreadsheet, looking through other sellers' storefronts. It's a lot of work to do OA at a large scale, which is a reason why I'm making that transition
Yep.
into wholesale, which makes things a little bit easier for me and honestly just the whole team. It's a lot of work doing like purchasing for 4 or 5 hours in a row, just doing small orders
Yep.
when I could just do a $10,000 PO and be done with it. So I'm making that transition currently. It's a very different business. With OA, you're just trying to get through as many orders as you can. You're trying to figure out how to get around with cancels. With wholesale, these distributors want to work with you. They want you to put in big orders. You're going to have to negotiate on pricing. And it's a very different business, but I'm already kind of getting used to it. It's probably around 40% of my business right now is wholesale. It was a little bit higher than that when it was like around ASD, just because I was meeting a lot of new
Yep.
suppliers, putting in big orders. And now it's kind of swinging back to the OA direction just because of how many good deals that are happening right now. So it's just kind of a lot of low hanging fruit that I'm like, it's a no brainer just to grab the easy stuff. But I'm looking to make a transition to be majority wholesale, like probably 80% by next year. That's the goal. And just to cut out that OA so I can take my business to the next level.
And so just for some perspective, what was like the revenue wise for like the top end of your OA business at max capacity?
Yeah, so that was 2022 December. My peak was 700K in 30 days from like Black Friday to like Christmas Day, pretty much that like 30-day window. In the non Q4 months, it'd be like 250, 300, maybe 400 on a really good month, but usually in like the 250, 300 range. But that peak, it took a lot of work. Like it's a
Yeah.
lot of research in October, September, like buying very early, holding for FBA, and doing a lot of merchant fulfilled on top of that to really boost my sales.
So a lot of the viewers are probably going to be blown away by those numbers, and rightfully so. They're impressive. And to just kind of get tactical and dig into what that takes, right? From an OA perspective, there's probably really going to be two big bottlenecks. One being products, and the second being order efficiency, orders, because a lot of people are probably dealing with hey, quick commercial break. I appreciate you guys supporting and following the channel. If you are enjoying this particular video, which I'm assuming you are if you're still watching it to this point, make sure you subscribe to the channel, scroll down, hit that subscribe button. Helps me out, helps the channel out. Let's get back to the content. Some order canceling issues. Maybe you found a good product and you just simply can't get enough of that, right? So we'll kind of dig into those individually and then transition into the wholesale piece, right? So
Yep.
from a order cancel perspective, what are some of the things that you have found to be successful that have allowed you to really acquire the products at the scale that you want?
Yeah, so one was something I just mentioned, which is gift cards.
Hmm.
That makes a huge difference on the purchasing end. And it's also going to discount your products as well. So you're going to be adding more margin. And sometimes I've even bought gift cards at face value just to be ensured that I will get that order to go through if it's something
Right.
that's really, really good. And another thing is using Google Pay, PayPal, and all of those to have the websites kind of trust me a little bit more. They're going to trust you a lot more if you're using PayPal compared to card checkout. Like there's been a couple places where every time I do a card checkout, I just get instant canceled. And then I switch to PayPal and it works every single time. No issue. So that's a pretty big game changer. And then another thing is if a site really just doesn't want to work with me, like there's a couple, I think it's like Shoe Carnival. There's a
Yep.
few where if you buy more than 5 units of the same product, same size, they're just going to cancel you pretty much every time. And at that point, it's not even worth dealing with. Like if you can't order 10 of the same item and do it repetitively, it's not even really worth it to try and go hard and get around that. And another thing that I use is I don't do this as much anymore, but jigging my address. So that means like adding an apartment number or
Hmm.
putting a couple random letters before the address number, just tweaking up your address a little bit more. Another good one is like changing it from street to STR. Anything that like slightly changes your address, but it still makes it deliverable is a good way to avoid cancellations.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different aspects to it, right? Like obviously you want to fight through those cancels, right? Because that creates a
Yep.
moat, that creates a competitive advantage for people who can't get those same orders through. And of course, a lot of the things that you just kind of brought up are huge value adds and huge tactics to take into consideration, as well as just messing around with the quantities, right? Some of the
Hmm.
different sites have sort of like those soft order limits, so to speak, where it looks like you can order 50, but realistically, if you order more than 10 or order more than 5, they're going to cancel you, right? So
Yep.
it's messing around with the quantities as well as all those things that you pointed out. But then the fact of the matter is, like you kind of alluded to, right? We need to be spending 100% of our time ordering from the places that we need, that want our
Yep.
money, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then that's
And
obviously where the wholesale piece comes into place. But of course, there's always sites that are like that as well. We just have to find them, experiment with them, and really dig into the ones that work.
yeah, for sure. And there's some OA sites that even encourage it. Like there's one, it was actually a brand that I bought from recently where they just have like a volume sales coupon code.
Yep.
So as long as the order is above 5,000, I get 100% guaranteed 20% off. And I know the order is going to be going through every time. So there's a few OA sites out there like that. It's not a lot of them though. It's kind of gotten slimmer in the past couple years, I feel like. But actually recently I feel like they've been opening up a little bit more during COVID. I feel like they're very strict because everyone's shopping online. They want
Yep.
it to go to the customer's hands. But recently, maybe economy is a little bit slower, something their sales are lower, and they're just trying to move product. And Nike was like that. I was having a lot of issues placing orders on Nike, which is somewhere that most OA people I would assume buy from. And now I can just kind of order however much I want to.
And then quickly transitioning into like the product research piece, right?
Yep.
Probably one of the first learning curves as a newer Amazon seller is really getting fluent with the data, really getting comfortable with kind of what products are going to work out for you, what products are not going to work out for you. What have you found to be some of your helpful tactics in finding products at volume?
Yeah, so I say just try a lot of different stuff. When I started, I was doing a lot of retail arbitrage and I went to the places that I knew the best. I come from a sneaker background, so I was selling on apps like StockX, Goat, places like that before Amazon. So I already knew a good amount of Nike shoes, Adidas products. So first place I went to was the Nike outlet and I tried out a bunch of different products. I scanned literally everything in the store. I tried some clearance clothing, I tried some accessories and mainly shoes. And that's kind of what I found the most success in. I did shoes for a very, very long time and I had good success with that. But overall, it's a tough business to do shoes at high volume. You're going to have a lot of returns. It's a lot of headaches to deal with. But recently, I've tried out a lot of new products and I did that through reverse sourcing. Like I was looking at people who had a lot of Nike, like similar to my store, and they were also throwing in like Legos or toys, like some seasonal
Right.
products. And I kind of started to experiment with that last year, and I did really well with a lot of seasonal products. So that's what I've tried to focus on more this year. A lot of chocolate, stuff like that, that will do well with good giftable items.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just so much value in looking for efficiencies within your OA sourcing, right? And for me,
Yep.
that's really trying to qualify as quickly as possible, right?
Hmm.
I'd rather start on Amazon, qualify based on all the data perspectives that I know work, and then map it back to an OA site rather than the reverse, dig into a specific OA site and trying to map it back to Amazon, right? Because with the
Exactly.
reverse method, you potentially open yourself up to 7, 8, 9 different sites that you potentially some of them didn't even know existed, right?
Yep.
Whereas if I'm just looking at Nike, hey, I can't make any of those qualifying decisions quickly because I don't know sales rank, I don't know buy box, I don't know competition, I don't know any of this stuff on the retail site, and then trying to map it back to Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're looking into new categories, new brands, new products, reverse sourcing is like a necessity. That's
Right.
where I'm doing most of the sourcing if I'm trying something new. And then kind of once I've got that mastered and I know what's good, what's not good, then I hone down and do more manual sourcing.
So it's starting to kind of transition into some of your recent endeavors, right? And I feel like this is sort
Hmm.
of a buzzword, across Twitter, across Instagram, is making that transition into wholesaler, right? I
Yep.
feel like OA is getting some negative publicity recently, just because a lot of people are starting to make that transition inside their own businesses. And for you, you've done that obviously within the past 4, 5, 6 months. And so, what has tactically that looked like? How have you started to kind of transition your mindset, your energy, your time, your resources into wholesale? And also, how would you kind of recommend and refer people to do the same?
For sure. So I started by going to trade shows. I went to my first one in January. This year is the Atlanta market. And the second one I went to was ASD. And that's personally my favorite way of finding suppliers, just because it's very easy for someone to come in from like an OA or just a random background and be able to talk to a supplier face to face. You don't have to cold call. You're able to build a more personal relationship. And I like that a lot more than reaching out to distributors online, even though I'm definitely going to be doing that and have done that as well. I think for beginners looking to transition from arbitrage to wholesale, going to trade shows is definitely the best way to start that process. And it's going to give you a good idea on what to say, what not to say, and just give you a really good feel for which distributors are going to be willing to work with you long term.
And from a at-home sourcing perspective, obviously, really, it's kind of a binary approach between distribution companies and brands.
Mhm.
What has been your strategy thus far, and how has that worked out for you?
Yeah, so I've focused mainly on distributors, and just because it's a little bit easier to get your foot in the door with a
Right.
distributor compared to a brand. A lot of brands, you're going to need to provide a lot of value. You want to optimize their listings and run ads. You need to provide a brand a little bit more value compared to a distributor where they just want you to buy as much product as
Right.
possible, pretty much. And I actually have been successful with one brand. I have one brand direct account, and I literally just got them from calling. I tried to call them once, and I tried to give them like an Amazon script. Or like, I'm here to optimize your listings. I can do this, this, and this. And the guy pretty much hung up on me. I called him back like 5 minutes later. I'm like, hey, I want 50,000 worth of this SKU right here. Can we do it for this price? And he was like, yep, let's do it. So sometimes taking that approach is a little bit better, just to be direct. And basically you just want to have what you want in mind and be able to put a deal together on spot.
Well, I mean, we also have to keep in mind who we're talking to, and right, a lot of these
Yep.
people we're talking to are sales reps, and what are they concerned with? Money, right? They're all
Yep.
monetarily number focused, right? And so anytime we're dealing with a sales rep, they're pretty much taking a percentage of any number you throw at them, right? So if there's multiple people, one person says, "Yeah, I'm looking to pay $5,000 for these products," another person says 50. Well, that dude's doing the math in their head, right? They know they take 10% or 15% or 5% of whatever they're bringing in,
Hmm.
and so instantly their ears perk up when they hear that 50,000.
Yep,
And that's a
exactly.
lot of how we have to be dealing with these sales reps because unfortunately, Amazon sellers naturally have just kind of gotten a bad reputation over the past couple of years, right? For a lot of different reasons. And part of the initial objectives in our relationships with these sales reps is building that trust. Building the trust that
Yeah,
we're not like the sales reps. We're actually a professional retail store, a professional wholesaler looking to do business long term rather than just flipping stuff. Right. And so
yeah,
that's kind of like the first mission as we really start to drive some of these relationships forward is building that trust and establishing that credibility that we're not just an Amazon seller.
for sure. I think that's really important too, to take a different angle. And one thing that's really helped get my foot in with a lot of these distributors and even that one brand is having a retail connection. So my mom has a gift shop here in Savannah. Any type of like soap or perfume, any product like that fits well into her store. And anytime I'm talking with a distributor, I'm going to say I have a retail connection because I've sold products through her, sold products to her, and it just makes things a lot easier. other than just saying like, hey, I do e-commerce and I sell on these platforms. It's much better to have a retail connection or just something else that you can offer.
Right. And so for the OA seller listening, right, looking to get into wholesale, what would be your recommendation to kind of guarantee that they have their first account open, their first order placed in the next 90 days? What's that process look like? Knowing that obviously we don't have an ASD coming up, we don't have trade shows coming up. What is that sort of strategy within the next month or two to get the momentum building?
That's a good question, actually. So I would first start with looking on Smart Scout, pulling up lists of brands. You can see their volume and if it's worth even looking out for them. And then next, I would look for local distributors that have those brands. Or honestly, you could do it vice versa and just look for local distributors and go from there. One of the first accounts that I opened was with a local distributor where I just typed in Savannah, Georgia, grocery distributor, wholesale near me, something like that. And it popped up and they had a couple decent products. And that was definitely one of the first accounts I got from just like cold reaching out to them. And most of these, especially the smaller companies, are willing to work with you. They don't really care if you do Amazon as long as you're there to spend money and you're a serious customer. So I would probably look locally first and then take a look at some brands and start searching for distributors by brand.
Yeah. I mean, the main input is going to be outreach, right? So if you want to
Yeah,
wholesale business in 90 days, that main input, the only input that matters is outreach, right? There's no sourcing. It's simply outreach. It's how many people are you reaching out to, and ultimately it's going to be a volume game. But with that
100%.
being said, man, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, so I am Dylan Sawyer on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So shoot me a follow on all three of those. Got a podcast on YouTube now, and I've been posting pretty consistently on Instagram and Twitter. So if you're looking for Amazon content, definitely go shoot me a follow.
Good stuff, man. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Garrett.